them out by soft copy to all members. So like today, you get the minutes, but send it out. If if any member specifically would like it on the day in writing, by all means. But I think just to conserve paper, if, for the most part, you all scan the minutes of the meeting before it's for the records. If you have a specific request, please ask the clerk. Other than that, I would just ask her to send them out soft copy. And when we are asking for corrections, confirmations here, if you want it, then we can put it off a little bit for you to read it. But rather than printing every week, and then, you know, it's a 30-second process. So the clerk can be guided accordingly. So, I take the minutes as having been read, no corrections. Move for the confirmation. Member Don, member Clark. Okay, all right, members, today we have a number of agencies. I'm going to invite them in now, but just for you to know, the discussion we had is there were a number of outstanding tickets, and we wanted to, our committee, apart from looking at the appropriations, we look at public administration, and in that, in the efficiency of the running of government. So we have invited today the Ministry of National Security, the Ministry of Transport and Mining, who are the Transport Authority. National Security would be the police. We have invited the Ministry of Finance and Public Service, specifically the Tax Administration, where the tickets are paid, and the Ministry of Justice that deals with the courts. And what we're going to try and do is to go into depth to see if we can make some recommendations to Parliament to increase the efficiency of how that is dealt with, and to find out from the ministry and its agencies, ministries and their agencies, whether they are coordinating and whether they have any plans in place to get the system working better. So with that, we'll invite in the ministries. Members, apologies, we have Mrs. Holness, Mr. Paulwell, and Mr. Stewart, and Mr. Taylor. So how are you today? Good morning. Good morning, everybody. We have quite a delegation here today, but I don't think we should be that long if we can get to the bottom of the problems and sort out some way forward. But, I, okay. Just spent a lot of time here in the last few days. uh, all right. Just for a little background, members, we as a committee were taken aback by the report of some huge numbers of outstanding tickets. And for us, we were of the opinion that this is not something that should be allowed to continue. And that when something like that happens, there's a breakdown in the efficiency of government, there's a breakdown in the interconnectivity, and certainly you're just getting to the point where it's not being dealt with in a proper manner. There are a number of ministries, departments, and agencies that are involved in this process of tickets. Today, we have invited all of them so that we can get the perspective of each of the departments and what challenges they may have, and see if we can get to the root of what the problem is. To that end, today we have the Ministry of National Security with the police. We have the PS and the police. We have the Ministry of Justice represented, am I correct? Ministry of Justice present. The Ministry of Finance is here specifically for the tax administration, that where the tickets would be paid, am I correct? Yes. And the Ministry of Transport is here, who have a sort of overriding policy involvement in it, as well as the Transport Authority. What I'm going to do, members, is to, as we go through, I will ask each of the ministries and departments to give their perspective of where we're at. And then what we can do is take the questions specifically of each one as we go along. But then the other ministries and departments, the colleagues can look at it, listen, and we can get to the bottom of the problem. For the record, even in the reports we got, there are some things that stand out, that are of concern. For example, we had asked about the number of tickets that are out there, unpaid tickets. And what we find in the reports is that there was a wide discrepancy in the numbers of outstanding traffic tickets that are reported by two of the government ministries. The Ministry of National Security, their report is that for the 8-year period from September the 22nd, 2010 to November 2018, their number is 296,749 tickets. Outstanding traffic tickets with a value of $615 million, roughly. The Ministry of Justice, on the other hand, reports that for the 9-year period, and it's a 1-year difference, but a 9-year period, 2010 to 2018, the number of outstanding tickets was 990,388, with total fines of 1.1 billion. So you have a difference there of 600,000, am I right? Tickets for the 1-year period. So there are real issues there. So obviously there's some breakdown in the communications. We want to get to the bottom of it. At the root of all of this, certainly in my mind, and I think most members, is the fact that we are on the roads, we see what happens, and you're often in a line of traffic and you have cars going down on the right and the left, up on the sidewalk, all over the place. A lot of persons have scant regard for the traffic laws, and if what they get as a penalty is a traffic ticket, which is never collected, then there are no consequences to it, and you'll never get order in the streets. So it makes no sense just giving tickets. And then maybe those that get caught in the web, those are persons who are more law-abiding, so to speak. They will pay. But then there's a whole raft of people that just suffer no consequences at all and are repeat offenders. And to that end, in the report, the Ministry of National Security highlighted that there were 313 people with 50 or more tickets who account for 25,804 tickets. Now, if you have 50 persons, if you have 300 persons with 50 tickets, what are they doing driving on the road? Something is wrong. The system has broken down, and today we want to see if we can do something to fix it. So I think the best place to start off is with the Ministry of National Security. I'll be guided, but I think the Ministry of National Security, and what I would do is ask each ministry to introduce their team, and then we will take the report from that team. Members will be given the opportunity to discuss and debate it, and then we'll go on, and at the end we'll see if we can wrap it all up as quickly as possible. So with that, P.S., I turn it over to you to introduce your team and to give your remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning to Chair, members, and colleagues across the various ministries and departments that are here this morning. With me today is Senior Superintendent Calvin Allen from the JCF, Mr. Arville Grant, who's from the Ministry of National Security on the policy side, modernization and technology, Mr. Gordon from the Traffic Ticketing Management System, Mr. Michael Morgan from National Security, Assistant Superintendent Mr. Knight from JCF, and Mr. Assistant Superintendent Rooms, or is it Senior Superintendent Rooms, all with the traffic ticketing machinery, Ms. Paula Wadsworth, or Senior Legal Officer from the Ministry of National Security. I think that is the team. And Mr. Trevor McCurdy from the Ministry of National Security. But all persons on either side, Constabulary Force and the National Security, have been working on the traffic ticketing system. So the committee is invited to recall, I'll just make some presentation because I have some updates. To recall our report, the report tabled by National Security on November 19th, provided updates on the number of outstanding traffic tickets, the amounts to be paid on outstanding traffic tickets, and measures to be implemented to address the situation in the current fiscal year. The committee will note that the report that we tabled for the period 22nd of November 2010 to 14th of November 2018, we have expanded now to include, to the end of the year, 31st of December 2018, our interrogation of system shows a new total of 309,608 traffic tickets have been recorded.
Could you repeat that?
309,608 traffic tickets have been recorded as outstanding for the period, with a value of 641,927 million. 641,927 million. And I want to indicate that of that 309,608 outstanding, 242,000 represent failed payments, which is about 77%.
So
now,
represent
failed payments, and I'm going to explain a little bit what that is.
That's
242,000 of that 309 is failed payments, right? Payments, so it should be further noted that we interrogated the system, and we'll reveal a number of factors contributing to this total sum of outstanding tickets. One is that, to note, though payments were received in some instances, the payment update may have failed on the back end of the system, and as a result is still reflected as outstanding. So we're working with TAJ and eGov. They are currently working to have these reconciled in the system.
I'm sorry, you're going a little fast, but
Okay.
I'm not quite understanding. You want to tell what you're saying here now? The people pay the tickets or they don't pay?
They have paid.
They're paid,
Yes.
but it's not recorded.
Right. So TAJ is now reconciling those payments.
All right. Okay, but
All right.
that affects you in that these persons, the number you have is 309,000.
Right, right.
So that's the total.
But
you have 242 failed payments.
Right.
You're saying that you're of that 242,000 paid. But
That is what the report is
so
now.
you're saying that only 60,000 people are outstanding.
Tickets. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
there are people.
Yeah.
Tickets are outstanding.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm just going to give you some of those problems because there is this lag time, of course, between when you record what is outstanding and then what is failed payments that we're now, clearing up. Payments, so that is one issue. Those payments that are at the back end that are taking a little while to be reflected as outstanding. Then there are payments made on order by the court require authorization upon entry, and there's a backlog that has been scheduled for clearance to eliminate these from the sum of outstanding tickets. And this is exacerbated by the fact the lack of interconnectivity between the agencies and the manual processes that still exist in some parts of the system. But work is now ongoing to automate some of these manual processes. And then there's the issue of jurisdiction, which hampers the ticket payments, where offenders either miss their payment date or opt to challenge the citation in court. And as an example, a motorist may reside in Montego Bay but receives a ticket in Kingston. In such a case, the records will show where such a motorist may be reluctant to return to the parish court to have his or her ticket adjudicated. Similarly, motorists have been taken into custody and found to have outstanding tickets in multiple parishes. And in these instances, it becomes a logistical challenge to have these outstanding tickets addressed. So those are three major areas that account for this, the reason why you would have outstanding. And this outstanding has been from 2010. But as I said, 77% of the figure that I gave you as outstanding is now being reconciled with TAJ as being paid. That's all? Yes. All right.
All right. No.
Okay, let me go.
All right.
Let me go on.
Just for members,
Yeah.
Clarity. So there are three. You said there are three issues.
Three major issues. Yeah.
Right. Number one is where the failed payment. In other words, people pay but it's not recorded.
Yes.
So you still
It's not
have
reconciled
it as a ticket.
yet.
It's not reconciled.
Yeah.
And that is a problem between yourself, or you had said a lack of interconnectivity between yourself.
Those are the challenges in
and
the
the tax
systems. Yes.
association.
Yeah.
What was the second now? The second problem?
This backlog in the courts that require authorization upon entry.
What
so
does
once
that
the
mean?
tickets,
What's that in English?
I'll invite Superintendent SSP Allen to explain that. Because I'm just giving an
Only
overview.
Member Campbell can understand that terminology.
You want me to finish up the overview, and then we can drill down into the details?
Well, I think yes, but I think just for us to understand, just to know what it means, because what's happening is for clarity. You're saying the backlog. What does that mean?
Go ahead.
Yes. Welcome.
Well, there are several reasons.
You want to identify yourself for the hands?
Calvin Allen, Senior Superintendent, Commanding Officer of the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement Branch.
That's a new one.
Yes, sir. PSTEB.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We spoke about you on
Thank
Thursday.
you, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So there are several reasons in terms of backlog, but the interaction that we have had with the court speaks to not only a technological challenge, but also the whole aspect of human resource challenge in terms of staffing to treat with a system that is manual, to do all the searches that is necessary.
Sorry, Mr. Allen. No, I'm going to allow us to have that discussion. I just wanted to know what it meant. What happens? In other words, the court does not, is it that people go to court and then you're not told that they have settled in court?
Right, sir. So people go to court there, it is paid, but in terms of...
But it doesn't come back. Similarly with the other one, you're not, the interconnectivity is weak again. All right. Yes? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, good day. RFL Grants, Director of Modernization at Ministry of National Security. Just to clarify the issue of the authorization, when a motorist goes to court and there's a judgment issued or a fine imposed, that is entered into the same traffic ticket management system, but as a part of the process, after the entry, there needs to be an authorization of that transaction so that it reflects as the ticket session being closed out. And in some cases that doesn't happen. Though from the motorist standpoint the issue is closed, from the system it is still outstanding because it is awaiting that second authorization. Within someone within the court.
Well, I think we'll get into those things. We're just trying to find out what the problem. So the second one is the court has resolved it, but it's not recorded as resolved.
Or if I, without delving into what caused the problem, since it has existed for a while, have you designed a solution and what it is?
We're coming to all of that. So this is just a matter of clarification so that you can understand.
Yes, I'm just trying to get. And the third point, so the one was
the issue of jurisdiction. So people getting tickets outside of their jurisdiction having to...
So if I get a ticket in Mobi, I can't pay in town during the period of time?
Yes, sir. You can pay in town. However, not just a matter of recorded. Where a motorist who has gotten a ticket, let's say in St. James, and has not met the required time frame of 21 days to pay or the 10 days to go to court, but he lives in Kingston, that matter has to be adjudicated in St. James. So the individual has to
go down.
Yes, and so some of those logistic challenges presents, and it is part of where we are looking forward to go in terms of a modern system that wherever you are, even out of country, you can still treat with such matter.
All right. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, the Honorable Prime Minister requested that the Honorable Minister of National Security take the lead. And because of these challenges that I have listed, he requested that the Ministry of National Security take the lead in addressing the challenges leading to this high number of outstanding tickets. So since the Ministry has assumed this lead for the clearing up of this system in November 2017, a number of strategies have been employed jointly with the Jamaica Constabulary Force, Tax Administration Jamaica, eGov Jamaica, Ministry of Justice Court Management Services to improve the management, administration, and accountability among members directly involved with the ticketing system. The strategies were outlined in the report that we submitted earlier, but just let me reiterate. These are establishment of a transformation team to coordinate the activities amongst the traffic ticketing management stakeholders. 2, the delivery of training to court staff to eliminate the backlog posting of payments in the system. And 3, steps are being taken to engage whole participants to complement staff at the parish courts. These efforts have significantly improved our understanding of the scope of the challenges and has been allowing our technical team to devise targeted solutions for increasing efficiency. So the following is a summary of some of the highlights that has happened from these achievements coming out of this transformation team and more interconnectivity now that we are talking to each other in a more targeted way. 13 additional persons are trained in 10 parish courts across the island. The JCF email accounts assigned to all TT, the traffic ticket management staff members, for improved access to electronic communication, because they didn't have that before, right? So this is all about efficiency now. There's formal reporting structure established for monthly updates from the data entry centers. Now, between October and December 2018, we have increased authorization points, which has resulted in a total of 6,351 tickets being cleared from the identified backlog of over 80,000 traffic tickets at different court locations. So because of that increase of authorization within the court system, increase of personnel, we have been able to clear 6,000 of those tickets that were in the court system at different courts across the island. Prior to the reviews of the transformation team, this number was being amassed with little or no strategic focus to have it reduced. And then there's a submission of unpaid tickets, which is now being completed at least 5 days before the court date as a minimum performance standard. And prior to our intervention, tickets would arrive at the court on the actual date of required appearance, and this did not facilitate the proper administrative process being completed. So there are some measures that were put in place to enhance efficiencies and reduce this backlog. As the transformation team continues to work on improving the existing system, parallel efforts are being made to leverage technology in a more meaningful way to achieve greater efficiency and accountability in the traffic ticketing system. The ministry is now in dialogue with eGov Jamaica to improve the system to provide electronic inventory management and the capacity for integrating mobile devices as a medium for issuing tickets during traffic enforcement operations. Additional data entry points will be established to improve the rate at which tickets are entered into the system. At present, the limited data entry staff have not been able to meet the service expectation of upload within 5 days of the offense date, and 10 days have been deemed more realistic within the existing constraints as a minimum standard for making payments online. So in anticipation of the new Road Traffic Act coming into effect, the ministry has increased its focus on cleaning the data, reflecting the number of tickets outstanding to eliminate errors so that these offenders can be pursued as a matter of priority by the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Those are my overviews right now in terms of where we are right now, and for greater detail on the operational part of it by the police force, Senior Superintendent Mr. Calvin Allen can give you, drill down some more.
A question. This committee, when did you start this process?
Transformation committee.
They've been operating for 6 to 8 months now.
All right. Stalin?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, colleagues all. My outline will speak to what has happened since 2010 in terms of the number of tickets that have been issued and how we are able to give a comprehensive account of those tickets. Let me say that the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement branch is where our traffic ticketing director operates from, and he is the person responsible to treat with the procurement of tickets, the distribution of those tickets island-wide, and thereafter those become operationalized, and that is through the efforts of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. The ticketing director also coordinates both administratively and operationally the entire process through 15 data entry departments that are island-wide, and these are the critical data entry points where the ticket having been written, they are now handed over and entered on the system so that the offender can go to court or to go online to treat with their payments. Since 2010, Mr. Chair, we have issued 4,062,416 tickets with a value of $8.192 billion. The breakdown of that goes further. How do we account for this? 2,262,761 with a value of 4.299 billion represents payment that has been made at the tax office, and this is 56% of the 4 million that I spoke of. In court, we have 1.2 million in court. In fact, 1,201,845 with a value of $2,491,746. That's 29%. So 56% has been paid over the since 2010 to December 2018. Tickets settled in court, 288,200 tickets have been settled in court with a value of $868,889.91. And this speaks to a percentage of 7.9%. Failed payment, or the overall outstanding amount from that, is 309,000. Of that, 242,961 represents failed payment, which Madam Permanent Secretary has just explained what that speaks to, and that has a value of $455.6 million, or 5.9%. So in essence, what we have that is really outstanding is just 2.2% of the 4 million tickets that have been issued since 2010, which amounts to 66,649 tickets, and that has a value of about $150 million. I should say also that the 309 in total, which includes the 242, which is failed payment, some 74,886 persons are offenders in that realm. So the process of issuing a ticket speaks to the officer signing for a ticket book. The officer then goes on the road and the citations or the breaches is committed, and he issues a ticket. The ticket is then handed over the data entry office, and the data entry clerks island-wide, they are now responsible to upload that ticket or those tickets on the system. Once it is uploaded, then our other stakeholder agencies such as the Ministry of Finance, TAG, and others, they are now able to interface that here is an offender's ticket to be treated with. The ticket is now paid at the Revenue Department, so we are looking at a situation which is normal. If the ticket is not paid, the ticket information is now accessed by the Ministry of Justice through the various courts, and they now prepare for adjudication. The traffic ticket management system is then updated as to the status of that ticket. If steps are not realized, if these steps are not realized, the ticket now becomes outstanding. And if the offender does not attend court, a warrant is now ordered and issued. Might I say that when a ticket is issued, the person is given 21 days within which to pay that ticket, and a further 10 days as it relates to court. If those 31 days is not responded to one way or the other, this is where the individual now finds themselves within the realm of being issued a warrant. In further explaining, Mr. Chair, as to the definition of failed payment, it can be one of many reasons. One is incorrect driver's license information. So one digit can result in a ticket falling in the realm of being described as being failed paid. And so although TAJ will collect, it will not be registered on the system as a process that has gone through in terms of its actual processes. but it is recorded or flagged as failed payment, but that money is collected. Other examples are incorrect offense code, because you know each breach of the law of the Road Traffic Act has a separate code. Incorrect ticket number, and this is where sometimes we find that persons even enter on the system as 0 instead of a whole. And this also speaks to persons who will pay online. So we have the situation where not just the person who walks into the revenue department to pay, but persons who interact online, we can have these sort of challenges. So in essence, this is what we have outstanding to treat with. What are the measures now in terms of how we treat with getting out of this and clearing the system? Quality control mechanisms are now in place to reduce the volume of this discrepancy. And this speaks to a deeper collaboration between the traffic ticket management system, the police, and TAJ. And this is an ongoing process. However, it requires even more quality control officers so that more persons can treat with the situation, and in other words, it can be resolved at a greater pace. Making that critical link also between persons who have been issued ticket and persons who have died. And let me explain this one, sir, because just as recent as last week, a gentleman sadly lost his life. And when we checked, that was an individual who had over 600 outstanding tickets. So this is part of the reconciliation process.
Repeat that.
A person who had over 600 tickets
600.
died. Yes, sir. We do have persons who have amassed that. And I heard your earlier chairman speaking to the whole aspect of how can an individual reach to that point. But one of the things that we have to bear in mind is the consequences of the law. And the consequences as we speak is very minuscule. In other forum we say that the Road Traffic Act has very little teeth. Because in other countries we know that if a person has one outstanding ticket, he is not able to do many things, to include travel or otherwise. Our current law is an 80-year-old law, and we really look forward to this new law, which will have far greater consequences, such as an individual not being able to renew a driver's license, an individual not being able to renew his registration documents. These are examples of the consequences if a person has an outstanding ticket.
I mean, I don't want to cut you, but I see many members shaking their head. I go back. 600 tickets. My understanding is you get some tickets, you get some points. Are you only looking at the dollar value of the tickets, or do you look at the points?
We're looking.
We even get 1 point for each ticket. We have 600 points. I'm making the point that is there any sort of reconciliation of these problems? Because we can put more and more and more laws on, but if we're not enforcing those that we have, we're going to get nowhere. So my point is here, you spoke about these persons, especially those with multiple offenses. Do they not get points? And do you have somewhere, you gave all those points, those figures, but nothing was said about the points that people get on the ticket?
At the moment,
is there an area where you tabulate it?
Yes. Let me just say this and then you pick up from there. At the moment, Chair, it is only the court that assign in terms of points where a person's license can be revoked or suspended. At the moment, the new Road Traffic Act now will empower the Island Traffic Authority.
When you get a ticket, don't you, let's say I drive dangerously, you get, I don't know how much point, 2 points, 4 points, something.
Right.
Is that not put on the ticket?
Yes, sir.
So what happens there? Does that same way go to tax administration? Does it not go somewhere to record those points?
Right, and I'm saying, remember, we're talking about persons who would have gotten tickets, who would not have responded in any way, shape, or form. And this 66,000 is what we speak of.
Exactly. So
right.
What happened to their points?
These are persons who we have to get warrants and go after.
Yes.
Right. These are persons, and we are doing that. We are doing that. Over the last 2 weeks, we have gotten some warrants from the traffic court, and we have used those to go after persons.
But I just think that most people are wondering why we wait till now. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Just allow my traffic ticket director, Chair, to make a point, and then we take.
All right. I'm going to. This is the end of the presentation from National Security, and then I'll turn it over to members. Or is it clarity you want right now? All right. Let me just you give your intervention, and then I'll open it up because I think all members want to be involved.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members. In relation to Otio Gordon, Director Traffic Ticketing, in relation to explanation as to the number of points that persons would have accumulated, the point is that the points are assigned whenever the person pays for the traffic ticket. So whenever they are in compliance, whenever they pay for the tickets, the points are assigned.
It told me not to pay.
Whenever the persons do not pay, that is the time when warrants are issued for them to be brought before the court. So in terms of an accumulation.
Go ahead, man.
Okay, go ahead.
In terms of an accumulation of points, the system, the TTMS, will record and accumulate these points. And if it is that the person is supposed to be disqualified, the system will also report on that. Currently, the ITA who is supposed to be empowered to issue these notices of disqualification is not covered properly, and the new Road Traffic Act will take care of that. So the challenges that we would have been having in terms of having persons disqualified would have been as a result of that situation.
Okay. All right. With gentleman from modernization, was there something you had wanted to? Okay. All right. Members, I have member Phillips, member Clark, member Phillips, Clark, Vaz, Don, Campbell. Okay, well. So you're the only one not speaking, Marissa? You'll listen, you'll recap. All right, member Phillips.
Sure.
I know.
I want to just come back, Silent. When it comes to the new Road Traffic Act, which I agree with you, it needs to come into being. But before that, I mean, even in the minister's presentation here in the House during the debate, was about the upgrading of the system, of the ticketing system, before or to meet it when it becomes into being. Now, I hear the explanation by the Permanent Secretary on some of the things that are being done to catch up to speed. But I don't get the impression that the resources and the technology is being put into upgrading what you currently have now to meet the deadline of this coming into being. Yeah? And it makes no sense that we, Chairman, we're going to bring a new act into being where the penalties are much greater than what exists now. Because I have a concern, Chair, of the discrepancies of the numbers between even what the Ministry of National Security gave and what the courts have given. And the explanation that was given in the reduction makes it even more concerning. But how are you going to manage? Because we have been given a timeline of March for this to at least come in, with the regulations to come in. How are you going to manage now when you're not even managing at this point in time?
Good day, member. there are a number of things that have been happening so far. Just to hinge it on, prior to the formal appointment of the TTMS transformation team, what was taking place was each agency or each ministry was focused on their section of the system. Following that appointment of the transformation team, which is just about a year now, I misspoke earlier, they have met with all the stakeholders and put together a full list of all the issues that pertain. It is recognized that the main issue is it is not the platform or the technology system that is there. There is a functioning traffic ticket management software, and where the issue comes in is the updates that have to be made to that system. Meaning when a ticket is issued, making sure that that ticket is entered into the system within a certain amount of time, when a judgment is made in the court or a fine is issued, to ensure that it is updated to reflect the current status of that ticket. Those are where the main issues lie. So it is where persons interact with the system. So recognizing that, we know that there is a need for reducing the capacity for human error to be introduced. As mentioned, just misplacing a number in the driver's license can cause a payment to be failed and the system not updated. So we have requested from the Ministry of Finance in the coming financial year funding to pilot handheld devices for issuance of traffic tickets. And that is meant to ensure that the ticketing information is updated as soon as possible in terms of new tickets going forward. We looked at the issues that created the backlog in updating.
I don't reach there so yet with the handheld, you know, because that is going to be a pilot that may happen for a time. But what are we going to do? Resolve it in the short term, resolve the system that you currently have. That we don't have the same bungling when the new act comes into being. Right. That is my concern. Because if it is that we are not dealing with what you have there, because you may not have all tickets coming by that handheld. So you still have probably a large amount coming in by paper. Now, if we don't fix that part of it, then you're back to square one again. Because in the new Road Traffic Act, the responsibility comes down to your department, the police force itself, into details of the offense committed, the date on which the fixed penalty was paid. All of this, the office in charge of the police traffic division of the constabulary force shall record in respect of the persons, and it lists out all. So if your front end is not fixed, then the back end going to give you what the front end put in.
All right, and we are not having any challenge as it relates to that aspect of it. What we are saying here is the whole aspect of all the other stakeholder agencies that interacts with the system. And that is where we need to be at that level, that type of a modern platform where, for example, a ticket that is paid in the court can readily update that information. So both TAJ, the TTMS, the police, everybody knows that this person is now right.
So you say your front end, all right. So is the courts now?
No. I'm not blaming. I'm just talking about we moving where everybody is at this level of system, so that we can all see and interface in a timely manner in treating with the various issues.
Who is managing that process? I hear about a team, but who is the face behind that process?
Ministry of National Security.
Right.
Who is the individual?
It falls under the modernization, so that would be the unit. Correct.
Correct. So where you reach with that part now with the courts?
We have identified that the backlog was created because of a resource constraint in terms of authorizing the payments. In the past 3 months between October and December last year.
Hold on. Repeat that statement.
One of the contributing factors to the backlog in terms of clearing or making sure that the ticket status is up to date is that authorization of the transaction of the judgment in court.
Authorization.
Okay. All right.
authorization. So what we have done, action that we have taken already, is increasing the number of authorizers available in the court. So Ministry of National Security, we had done consultations with the various courts over the past year. We recognize that as an issue, and we liaise with eGov and with the police computer center to get additional authorizers created and trained in the courts so that we stem the backlog.
I would like to hear the PS.
Chairman, just to, with Mr. Member Phillips's point, I understand what he's saying, and I want to know in the court system, because I work in the court system. Say, for example, tell me about Trelawney. Who is it or what is it you have done? Who is the new authorizing officer?
No, one second. No, member
Member
Dalrymple, that was an impromptu intervention. I know, I understand. 1 second. Pierce, I see you. Yeah. We will take a full sum later, but if you at this point, I understand you have an issue. Please, yes.
Yes, Chairman. I became a little bit.
Could you identify yourself?
I'm sorry. I'm Carol Palmer, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, and I became a little bit anxious because while the Ministry of Justice itself is not involved in the operations of the traffic ticketing system as far as the courts are concerned, the judiciary has had for all this time problems with the system. And suffice it to say, the new Chief Justice in June wrote to the ministry about these problems. There have been some interventions, some meetings that were held, and in fact, a diagnostic opportunity was afforded. And the list of problems, which we will speak to in our presentation, was submitted to the Ministry of National Security. So it's not a simple fix of an authorizing officer. That's a band-aid for what the court needs. Because what we have is a traffic ticketing system that meets the needs of the police, and it does not meet the needs of the courts.
That's
exactly where and therefore, you know, this is a perennial problem that we have raised, and I have been consulting with the team. For example, the transformation team, the court is not represented there. So how do you actually get the information for the court? It's not enough to be having meetings with them and so on and around the place. The court is the adjudicating arm of the Jamaican society. Yes? And if we want the court to work well, it has to be involved in the plans and preparations that are being made for whatever system it is to work with. The court is a creature of statute. So you don't just do a little band-aid thing and so on. It don't work. And we have had many conversations about this. And the courts, you know, you say you're going to introduce electronic tickets, but the law does not exist for the judge to take that and to put an electronic signature. It cannot work.
Chair.
I am sorry that I have to say it, but it's not a band-aid fix, and I'm not blaming anybody, but we have to get serious about this traffic ticketing system, and everybody needs to be at the table, everybody needs to be involved, and everybody needs to play their part. And I will stop there.
Members, 1 second. I just want some advice procedurally. I have basically everyone would like to ask some questions. Please, just...
Yeah, I'm closing now, Chair.
No, I understand, but what I'd like to ask, there's obviously some different points of view, and I think, is it that we're going to, everyone would like to make the interventions and ask the questions of national security now, or should we ask the four to make their presentation, and then having made the presentation, then we can deal with it as a collective? I just want advice, because I think
I would just suggest the latter that you propose, because the ticketing is one element.
Exactly.
And from what I'm hearing,
We are
I don't even
having
believe you
the
can go
real-
too far on that, because
All right,
it seems
so-
a lot
so
more
members-
needs to be done.
So I just wrap up and then
When-
we,
no,
we
when?
have the rest of them finished.
What?
I just wrap up and
All
then
right,
we'll have
please.
the rest.
Yeah, and
No,
then members, if we may.
No, and the reason why, Sir Allen, why I brought it up and I sent for a copy of the Road Traffic Act, because I've been saying in the House itself, even in my own presentation, that before, there are certain things that we need to do first before. And what is obvious is that there's a system, but each entity is operating on its own. There's no coordination between. And if it is going to work, because I think we would be unjust in enacting this act here, this bill, without fixing that road, the ticketing system. So, you know, so.
All right. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to PS in the Ministry of Justice, and then afterwards I would ask the Financial Secretary if what input that they feel is necessary from Finance, and then Transport for Transport Authority. So at PS, you had a totally different number for traffic tickets, so there's really a discordance between the two. So I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. With me are members of the administrative arm of the judiciary who have spent the time to delve into this matter and to prepare that report that was submitted to the committee, and also to speak to the issue. With me is Tricia Cameron Anglin, the principal officer for the court management services, Dr. Donato Dennis, who is our statistician that has been kindly provided to us by the JUST project funded by the Canadians, and that now allows the courts to be able to provide verifiable statistics in all its parts. And he is going to be the main person, with your leave, sir, doing this presentation for the judiciary of Jamaica. Also on the team is Mrs. Veronica Poyser, who was involved in the audit that was done, and Mr. Campbell, a data entry officer, very versed in this matter of the tickets in the courts. So with your leave, Mr. Chairman, I will hand over to Dr. Dennis, who will give you the details, the diagnostics that the court has undertaken.
Good morning. Thank you, P.S. Palmer. Okay, so my presentation is going to have two primary facets. One is that I will speak to the statistics that were harnessed and presented by the courts. And secondly, I will present a critical analysis of the state of affairs for the traffic ticketing system from the perspective of the courts. So I'm going to start by looking at some of the data that we harnessed. And I must point out that methodologically, it was not possible at all to rely completely on the data that is in the TTMS system. All right? Methodologically, it was just not possible based on the large number of deficits and, in some cases, inaccuracies that persist in the system currently. So we had to supplement the data from the system with actual manual analysis of records in the court itself. Our records, the data we have presented doesn't purport any disaggregation in terms of proportion of tickets that were, or payments that were failed. It just presents a raw score, which is an estimate. As I said, the data in the system itself is heavily inadequate, and so it could not have been relied on exclusively to prepare the estimates. Hence, we supplemented it with actual research in the respective courts. So our overall analysis suggests that with a margin of error of plus or minus 5%, 998,338 unpaid tickets were amassed over the period January 2010 to the end of 2018. The largest proportion of this number is accounted for by Kingston and St. Andrew, which actually accounts for 63.27% of the total island-wide. They are followed by St. James, 9.74%, St. Catherine, 8.26%, Clarendon, 5.20%. Among the parishes contributing the lowest proportion to this number, St. Mary at 0.98%, St. Thomas 1.15%, and Hanover 1.32%. In terms of the equivalent dollar value of tickets outstanding, as I said, this does not present any disaggregation in terms of what payments were failed, etc. It's just an overall raw score of the data we have harnessed by supplementing the system with manual records. It suggests that the equivalent dollar value amount for the number of outstanding tickets is between 1.04 and 1.1 billion. Again, the margin of error here for this estimate is plus or minus 5%. The Kingston and St. Andrew again accounts for the largest proportion in dollar value terms of tickets outstanding with 35.69%, followed by St. James 16.01%, St. Catherine 13.58%. Now, there is quite a significant skewness, positive skewness, in the distribution of both number of outstanding tickets and the dollar value of outstanding tickets. I say there's a significant positive skewness because what we realize is that there are a small number of parishes or areas which account for the overwhelming proportion of both the quantity of outstanding tickets and the dollar value of outstanding tickets. These parishes, namely Kingston and St. Andrew, St. Catherine, Clarendon, St. Anne, together account for the overwhelming proportion of both the number of tickets outstanding and unpaid tickets, ranging in both cases between 71 and 85% of the overall total. So that disaggregation led us to a computation which suggests that the annual value of unpaid tickets over the period 2010 to 2018 is 122,591,334. Again, methodologically, I am underscoring that the system is inadequate in supporting the generating of these estimates and so had to be supplemented. Now, what is the problem on hand and what solutions have been pursued? So I will now move to a brief critical analysis of the state of affairs from the perspective of the courts. The problem is multifaceted and multi-stakeholder in nature. And so as P.S. Palmer mentioned, there is really no simple unilateral fix to the problems that exist right now. But from the perspective of the courts, though multifaceted the problems are in nature, the nucleus of the challenges lie in the deficiencies in the TTMS system, the traffic ticketing system, and other technical and operating deficits. So, Speaker, the TTMS is really a police system, as Permanent Secretary Palmer mentioned, that is ill-equipped by fundamental design and attributes to serve the direct needs of the courts, both from a reporting and a case tracking perspective. It is not a system in its current form that allows for efficient tracking of cases and their statuses, meaning whether a matter is active, inactive, or disposed, as well as to track the statuses of important events that take place on the continuum of a case from initiation to disposition, meaning, for example, the status of a warrant, whether a warrant has been issued, whether it has been administered. These are not things that we can reliably track in the current form that the TTMS presents itself. Aside from the fact that the TTMS is primarily a police system, there have been deficits in the accuracy and adequacy with which updates are made to the system and transmitted to the courts. Such gaps in the data has resulted in judges exercising due caution in issuing warrants, as there have been a number of instances where warrants have been issued for persons who show up to court with proof that they have actually paid their tickets. So this has resulted in the judges exercising unduly so caution in issuing warrants. All right, thanks. So as I said, the judges have exercised due caution in exercising, in issuing warrants, as there have been a number of instances where persons have shown up with their proof. What has been happening, proof of payment, what has been happening is that in a number of instances, records that may or may not have been updated at the revenue agencies are not adequately reflected in the TTMS within the courts. And there have been a number of technical challenges that have contributed to that over time. So while the courts continue to issue warrants, the deficits in the system have lowered, and reasonably so, the confidence with which this exercise is undertaken.
May I just insert, because you may wonder why the judge would not want to be issuing the warrants or signing the warrants for issue. But we have cases out of our sister CARICOM country of the Trinidad and Tobago where citizens have taken the court to court and have gotten significant judgments for having detained them, incarcerated them, and then only to find when they turn up in court that they had already paid their tickets. And we have had instances of that in the Ministry of Justice over time, where we have had to be paying the second payment, where people go to court and pay for want of not going to jail, and then they pay the money, so they've paid twice, and then we have to recover the money from our financial institutions and pay it back. And so we must be able to appreciate a judge wanting to insulate themselves from being individually and personally charged for these kinds of things. And so hence I am saying it's not a simple problem.
All right, that asks you to.
Thank you, Pierce. So as Pierce mentioned, deficits in the TTMS have impacted the rate at which warrants are generated and issued to the police for enforcement. The Chief Justice, as Pierce mentioned, initiated an engagement of the TTMS transformation team at the Ministry of National Security to enhance the system to a point where it can more dynamically serve the needs of all stakeholders, including the courts. Since then, a series of meetings have taken place with the TTMS transformation team from MNS and the statistics unit and IT unit within the court system, leading to a diagnostic assessment of the system. So the courts have carried out, or towards the end of last year, we carried out a diagnostic assessment of the TTMS system, in which we highlighted a number of operating and other functional deficiencies, which we have prepared in a report form and issued to the Ministry of National Security for action to be taken in further bolstering capacity of the system to include provisions for additional variables and additional features in allowing for the system to properly serve the needs of the courts.
Could you please talk into the mic? I don't think.
Okay.
Oh, try it again. Just try it again. No, talk in it and see if it works. Talk, see if it tests it.
Okay.
No? No, try the other one.
That's better?
I thought I saw the technician fixing the mics yesterday.
Okay.
It was short-lived.
That's better? Okay, thanks. So improving the system also requires, apart from the technical assessment that we have done and issued our findings to the MNS, and further engagement is expected to continue with the TTMS transformation team to ensure that the deficiencies identified are addressed in a collaborative way. Improving the system also requires robust training of staff. I know that is ongoing, but further training and continuous training is definitely required. Not just with the data entry staff in the respective courts, but also other support staff and judges indeed, and court administrators. And this is something that is high on the agenda of the Ministry of Justice and the courts at the moment. There are important facets of the way forward. These rather are important facets of the way forward in improving the processes surrounding the handling of traffic matters in the courts. The justice sector is indeed determined to foster the timely and efficient delivery of justice for all in this very important matter, and is prepared to work with all stakeholders to ensure that this happens. Efforts are also on the way to bolster the technical capacity of the courts to provide more stable internet support to ensure that we're able to properly furnish all the desired needs of an upgraded system. Because I'm emphasizing again that the system in its current form does not properly serve the needs of the court and requires substantial upgrading. And we are prepared to support that upgrading to bring us to the point of equanimity.
Okay. You're almost finished?
Almost, yes.
All right.
I want to highlight just one important case here, which really in my mind underscores in a very pointed way the ethos of the problems faced with warrants. A special research was administered at the corporate area traffic court in the first half of 2018, between January and June of 2018. A total of 65,195 new traffic matters were filed in the corporate area traffic court. An alarming 57,494, or 88.19% of which resulted in warrants being ordered. Now, due to a large backlog of cases being carried, the vast proportion of these warrants were either not yet prepared or executed, but for those which were executed, only 1.4% of the warrants which the courts issued to the police end up in matters being returned to court. And so that also speaks in a very significant way to the issue of the enforcement of warrants. So the problem is multi-tiered and multifaceted, and as Pierre said, a full stakeholder collaborative effort is needed, but we have to fix the TTMS system in its current form and ensure that we're able to properly prepare for what is ahead with the new Road Traffic Act. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I'm going to just take them, just one clarifying point. How many tickets did you say were issued over the 9-year period? Total number of tickets, did you give a number?
No, our figure here was unpaid.
Oh, the only
Right.
figure you have is unpaid. You
That's
don't
what we're
have
asked to report on.
No, I'm
Yes,
happy
unpaid,
with that.
yes, unpaid.
All right.
Yes.
Before we move on, I'm going to now move to Ministry of Finance and certainly Tax Administration. You can introduce and give your input as to your portion of this affair.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. With me today are the Tax Administration Jamaica. We have Ainsley Powell, the Commissioner General, Dave Jeffrey, Deputy Commissioner Operations, George Wright, IT Consultant, Vaughn Thomas, Revenue Administration and Information System Technical Specialist, and Hank Williams, Deputy Commissioner Strategy Services. We also have Rochelle Dakers from the Ministry of Finance. The Tax Administration Jamaica was essentially asked to provide the forecast for the year 2018-19. We would have submitted a report earlier, which indicated approximately 606.5 million as the expected take for the year. With further information, with the April through December actual information, we have revised that forecast downwards to 568.9 million. That's essentially what we were asked to provide. But just to comment that the challenges of the Tax Administration Jamaica with respect to this system with the collections would be in terms of the updating of the system. So persons will come in to pay their tickets at Tax Administration, and it is not being reflected on the system. As a result of that, because we do not turn away anyone, the actual cashiers at TAJ will take input information in order to get the system, get the ticket paid, and yes, you might run into some issues there with errors.
But a person can pay online as well, and they can pay in any tax office, right?
They can pay online if the system is updated. If it's not updated, they cannot make the payment online.
What do you mean by updated?
If the ticket system has been updated, if it has not been updated, they are unable to make the payment online.
Okay.
I'll pass.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. For the tickets to be paid online, the ticket has to be entered onto the TTCMS, and then it's transferred to our database, right? And then it will be seen there. Also, it's necessary for the actual ticket to come up for the cashier to accept the payment. So when it is not entered, and we have discussed that to find some solutions, try and get the tickets entered, within at least 10 days, and then subsequently at least within 5 days. But if it is not there, then the cashier does the data entry. It's not really a data entry system, so it doesn't have all the bells and whistles for validation, and that might also create some input errors. The relationship between the cashiering system and the TTMS system is of such that we are not necessarily informed of the failed transactions, but we know that that's within the scope of things. Unfortunately, we don't have a copy of the tickets that the cashier would have entered, because that's the only copy that is available would be the taxpayer's copy.
I don't understand that.
All right. When the taxpayer comes with their copy of the ticket.
So I come, right, but I come in to pay.
Yes. It's not yet entered. The cashier does the entry. You'll get back your ticket because that's your copy, right? We'll give a receipt for payment. So if we need to go back to check what was entered, we will not have had this access again to the source document unless you comes back with the, come back with the ticket.
Because if we're hearing different things, but really what the police are saying is that a major part of this problem is 242,000 failed payments. So those are payments made to you, largely. That
well,
nobody can
I'm not sure. We'd have to reconcile that, but essentially there's a possibility that we would have had failed payments, but most of the payments,
242,000.
Yeah, that we'd have to get their data set and we match it back with what.
A whole heap of failed payments.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a breakdown somewhere there.
Yeah.
I mean, major. Are you working with the what's a group called again in the ministry? That's transformation. Are you on the transformation group?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah, we are working with that group, especially for the future state under the Road Traffic Act.
All right. Do you have any further information?
No, not as it relates to the current.
Okay.
Yeah.
The last, well, let me know if I'm right, but the last one is the Ministry of Transport. We have a report that we got, which the Ministry of Transport has really said that their main arm, which is the Transport Authority, is not directly involved in it, except that it sort of oversees, a certain part of the sector. So I don't know if you are fully germane to this discussion, but Pace, I turn it over. Is there any input you'd like to give us on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have with us Mr. Cecil Morgan, Managing Director of Transport Authority, and to my left is Dr. Janine Dawkins, our Chief Technical Director, and our Senior Legal Officer, Mrs. Yvonne Barnett Russell. We have Ms. Tanya Bedward, Director of Transport Policy, and we have Ms. Winter, who has sitting there beside Mr. Anderson of the National Road Safety Council. Both have been very involved in the new Road Traffic Act. The Ministry of Transport, and we point out the Transport Authority, is not that they're not directly, they are not involved at all in the issuing of tickets, because they deal with the public passenger offenses against the Public Passenger Transport Act and the Transport Authority Act, and those offenses are not really ticketable. What they do is issue summons. So the offenses that the Transport Authority has to deal with are not related in any way to the ticketing system, and therefore they would not have a role to play in dealing with the backlog of tickets. The ministry itself, of course, has a role in terms of the legislation and yes, indeed with the new Road Traffic Act. Yeah. Right. And the thrust of the legislation going forward is to try to reduce as much as possible the interaction with the court, because it's recognized that these offenses are being committed in the hundreds of thousands, and to the extent that persons decide not to pay and by default end up in the court, then it puts a significant burden on the court system. And the legislation has some provision that will make it difficult or impossible for certain transactions with the government, like the renewal of driver's license and the re-registration of a vehicle, to be done if there are outstanding tickets. And Dr. Dawkins maybe can elaborate on that some more. So basically, that is that. The Island Traffic Authority is involved with the suspension of driver's license. But we must remember that the tickets the points that result in suspension are only allotted when the fines, when the tickets are paid. So if the tickets are unpaid, then, and the person has not gone to court, then those points would not have accumulated. And I think this is a deficiency in the current system, yes, as was pointed out before, that will have to be addressed going forward.
All right, members, I'm going to resume where we left off. Member Phillips had asked some questions, but I'm going to ask Member Clark, then I have Member Vaz, Member Dunn, Member Campbell, Member Brown, and Member Jackson, and Member Dalrymple. That's what I have on the table now. So, Member, yes. Member Clark.
Yes, Mr.
Yes, I have you.
Yes, Chairman. I listened to Sir Allen spoke earlier, and he said that.
You have knighted him.
Sorry?
You have knighted him.
It's in the post. Just one digit may cause the difference in terms of a failed payment for Tom Jones. But that change of number, of digit, will cause me, Peter Clark, because what I'm trying to get at is that there are digits that makes up a driver's license number. So I might have 321 as my last three digits, and the next person might have 231 as their last digit. And you're saying that just one digit mistakenly placed can cause a fail or paid. If I go to the tax office to pay my ticket, and mine is 321, but on the uploading is 231, what is it that is going to be said about my 321 payment that was accidentally placed at 231?
Remember that there are other factors that accounts for identity, such as name. Right? And remember, we talk about the example I gave was, for example, a 0 instead of a whole, or a whole instead of a 0. Right? So there are other factors that comes into play in terms of identity, such as name, address, and those other factors.
And I am happy that you say that, because I now move to Permanent Secretary Palmer, who have made it clear, and persons have said to us all the while, we have paid our tickets and we're asked to go to court for a ticket that has been paid, only to find out when you get into the court on that day that yes, you actually paid, but it is a simple mistake, as you have said. How do we reconcile? How do we make sure that that don't happen? Because yes, you might go to court and the judge finds out that you have paid and you're left off the hook. But I miss a whole day in court. That is one whole day that I could be doing something else.
In relation to that question, what usually happens is that the persons at the court, they are required to check to verify whether or not this person would have paid. Right? The status of that ticket would not be saying outstanding, but it would be saying failed payment, and then a further escalation or inquiry as to that is what happens. The failed payments occur.
But I am dragged before the court. I am sitting in court and my name don't call. I have been there from 9 in the morning, and 3, 4 o'clock I'm still waiting for my name to be called, only to hear when my name is called that the ticket is checked and yes, you're not supposed to be here.
What I'm saying, if it is that there is a check made on the record of this person, the status of the ticket showing failed paid would be there. tickets are failed paid when they are paid at the tax office and there's a discrepancy. This information can be accessed by the court, the data entry persons in the court, and if it is that the record is checked, it would be viewed and it would be seen that there is an issue, discrepancy right there.
Let me put it the other way. Why is it that I would have paid, why would it be that I would have paid the ticket, yet the police will find me on the road, find me in my office, because there's a warrant for me to go to court. And when I turn up in court, only to be proven at 4 o'clock, after I've been there from 9 in the morning, at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I am told that no, you are checked out and you have paid your ticket. Why? That's my question, and I would like to get it from the Ministry of Justice.
Yes, let me apart from the fact that I would find a lawyer named Clark and sue the judge, it seems to be the direction we're headed in. The Ministry of Justice, you wanted to just
All right, so
intervene here?
Just to offer 2 points of clarification. One is that...
Yeah, your mic. Oh.
Okay.
Yes, members, everything is being put in the Hansard. Therefore, just for the Hansard writers, I know some have spoken more than once, but each time you're speaking, if we could just identify ourselves so that the Hansard can properly reflect it.
Dr. Denarto Dennis, court statistician. So I want to make 2 points. One is that if the records are not properly updated from the revenue collectors, and we have seen several incidences of those, then there's no way that the court will be able to access that record, right? So as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, there have been a large number of incidences of deficits and difference and inaccuracies as well.
And the judges are now reluctant to move aggressively.
Exactly so, Mr. Speaker. Exactly so, right? So if it's not updated, we can't see it, right? And that has happened a lot. The second thing I want to underscore is that there has been a historical practice of the police sending of all tickets, paid, unpaid, and spoiled, being sent to the courts. That has created an enormous burden on the courts, thin resources of having to sort through the tickets, because only the tickets that are unpaid should really be brought to the court. Those are the tickets that the court has jurisdiction over, right? But that has not been the historical practice, even though there are now efforts being made to address that. MNS has been making efforts to address that, but that is the historical practice. And that practice has caused significant strain on the data capture and data entry apparatus within the courts.
All right, continue.
So, Mr. Chairman, all I want to get across is, if I have proof that I have paid my ticket and there's a warrant that has been issued for me for that same offense, is it that I can find, or something can be implemented, where I can turn up at the tax office or the police station, present my proof, or even the court office, present my proof,
and make them write it off,
so that I don't have to go to court?
Well, knowing our court system, I doubt that, though. If you don't go, you'll find 2 policemen at your door.
I do hope that the transformation, team that is in place, that will take that into consideration, so it alleviates and free up some of the time.
I think we will we'll make our recommendations at the end.
Chairman,
before I move on to member...
Chairman, may I just say something in relation, because that's an incident I am aware of that happened only this week. And
did you lock him up?
And that citizen had to go to court with an attorney to have the warrant vacated.
Wow.
So that they don't get locked up again.
And this is the issue. These are just, and a lot of it is coming back to administrative.
Yeah,
issues.
once a warrant has been issued for you, you can't just get it to disappear. There is a legal process. And you have members who are attorneys, I'm not. There is a legal process to get rid of that warrant, or else you have to do whatever it is that you have been warranted for.
All right. Member Vaz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noticed the argument with the tickets that the ticket points are not assigned until the pay, which should mean that those who pay are the ones who suffer the consequences of the old system. So I just want to find out if in the new system that we're looking at, if the points will be assigned at the point of the issuance of the ticket. So that's my first question. To get away from the fact that those who don't pay are the ones who don't suffer losing points of their lives. I just want to know if it will be assigned at the point of where the ticket is issued. And also, it's a question really, data entry centers. I want to find out how is the data updated? Is it physically? Like somebody type in the information from a ticket, or is it scanned and uploaded to a system? Or if that is the direction we'll be going in with regards to the new system we're looking at.
All right, in relation to the first question, as far as I am aware, the accumulation of points will remain as is now. And second point, the tickets are data entered, not scanned. They are scanned as well, but they are data entered, and there are some verifiable fields, validation fields. That is, one is the driver's license field. So if it is that offender A gets a ticket, the driver's license number is inputted, and this pulls back information from TAJ as to this person's data. So not all the fields would be filled out without being validated, so to speak. So there is validation, and there is certain fields in the system, certain processes that would allow for confirmation, double confirmation of information in the system.
All right, for both of the questions, the first, what you mentioned that it will remain the same. But if it remains the same, you're going to continue with the same problem that you were having before. Because that would mean that those who don't pay would continue to escape from having their license not being deducted a certain amount of points. But only those who pay would now reach that stage where the license might be suspended because you are cooperating with the system. So I guess we have to find a way to incorporate that to ensure that that does not continue.
Well, currently, if it is that you do not pay, then what exists in the system is that a warrant will be issued for you.
But remember the case of the man who, with the 600 tickets. So obviously there's a problem there. So I'm thinking we have to find a way where we can incorporate the deduction of points from when the ticket is issued. And well, my colleague said that a suggestion, so I'm hoping when it comes in. But the other question with the data entry thing too, I realize that probably when somebody has to physically input everything, naturally it's more tedious, and it's due to error, and it's a deterrent for sometimes people who are working to take the time to do things that probably they could have done a lot faster. So I'm thinking with the scanning system, yes, I said there are some fields that they would have to input directly. But I'm thinking when a ticket is written up by the police officer, all of that information that should be required to move forward, I would think it should be written there. That means when the ticket is scanned and uploaded, all the information should be uploaded at the same time. So I'm just wondering why you would need both if the scanning system is in place, if the police officer would be putting in all the information from day one. Or if that can be done where everything can be on the particular physical thing, where they put in all the information required, then it is scanned onto a system and uploaded which would definitely save time for that particular person and in the entire system as a whole.
As was mentioned before, we are moving towards getting a system like that in place. But at current, as I indicated, validation is not all information that is actually data entered. Because for the vehicle information and the driver's license information for the person, those types of data is pulled back from TAJ's database. So the vehicle information and the biodata for the persons are actually validated on the JCF side from data from TAJ.
Just to speak to the issue of entering the data, we recognize that is where most of the errors come in, and that's what causes the issues with failed payments, with updating the tickets, and also the manual data entry process is not efficient, which is why we're moving to do that pilot with the handheld devices. So what we want to have happen there is, as soon as the ticket is issued, one, the validations in terms of driver's license, in terms of the offense codes, the things that typically cause errors would be validated in real time. And secondly, once that ticket is issued on the device, it is automatically in the system. So the person would be able to go and pay the ticket online within a matter of time. Instead of having the system now where the ticket book has to be completed first, then it is carried to the data center, then it is data entered. Possibility exists for errors to be introduced and so forth.
Just to follow up, since you mentioned that, I fully understand the explanation for the second part of the question. But with that same system, with the handheld devices, if it works then, couldn't that the first part of the question I asked now, read the points being assigned at the same time? Since you're going to use the handheld devices to issue the particular ticket, since you're going to have it uploaded into a system, wouldn't it be at that point where it could be accommodated, where at the same time the points would be assigned to the particular person and then it can be used to penalize them going forward?
Right. In terms of what exists today, we recognize that in the consultations that we've had as a deficiency. It is something that we are discussing with eGov, because historically eGov manages the system, but they need someone to recommend this as something that needs to be updated. And that is what the transformation team is doing now. For each of the stakeholders, we are the focal point to liaise with eGov to address those matters that have an impact on the system. In increasing the number of authorizers, as I said, we've done that for all the courts. I have a list of the names from the Trelawney court where four additional authorizers were created. Anything that has to do with the system. Previously, the JCF would be concerned about the matters or the aspects of the system that relate to them. The courts similarly, but through the consultations, all the concerns that exist for each agency come into the TTMS team. Recommendations such as the one that you raised a while ago about where the points are accumulated. And the ministry, the transformation team will discuss that with eGov, determine what type of funding needs to happen and why it was done that way in the first place.
All right.
So that is no. All right.
Chairman, before night, just want to add something to this very point.
All right, please. Let me yes, very good. But members, on oversight, just because the name was called up often, I understand eGov is here as well. And they seem to be involved in the putting together of the system. Is that correct? Is eGov here?
The system is administered by eGov.
eGov not here? Oh, that's a bit of an oversight then. All right. Okay, but you're from... Okay, all right.
I'm from the National Road Safety Council, Victor Anderson. I was part of the team that has been working on the new Road Traffic Act through the Ministry of Transport, and the matter of assigning points immediately as the ticket is written. That is a point that we have been trying to, the Road Traffic Act team has been trying to get changed. But we have had resistance.
You want it right away?
We want it that way, sir. We do want it.
Who doesn't want it? Who doesn't want it?
Well, that is the objection we keep getting, that the points can only be assigned upon an admission of guilt. We have had advice from the Attorney General's chambers, and they appeal to some Canadian precedent. And according to that advice, the only offenses for which points could be assigned immediately the ticket is written are offenses for which there is no possibility of the person being imprisoned. So if they can't pay their fine, the other option is so many days in prison. The advice we had was those are the only cases that points can be assigned immediately.
With impunity. All right. Mr. Knight?
It's the same issue I was seeking to clarify.
Which one is that?
Although you are issued with a ticket, the presumption of innocence still exists until you accept liability. So when you pay the ticket, you accept liability. So you are guilty.
Okay.
Or you can elect to go to court. So what the ticket does is give you the option to pay if you feel that you are guilty, or you go to court. So the presumption of innocence still exists. So you cannot assign points.
All right, that does have some logic. All right, Member Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to contribute a little bit to this discussion with the points. Is there any possibility from the regulator's point of view that we could assign what they call putative points at the time when the ticket is being written? So these are not points that is sanctioned yet by the courts. I mean, if the person pays a ticket and admits to the charge and the points are assigned, or the courts do or do not. But what that does, it instills within the person who is committing that offense that points in fact will be assigned to their license. And there is either an expiration period, which is putative points. Putative points expires, and or if the court issues a decision against that person that relates to that.
So you're almost like a temporary point.
Technically, it's a temporary point, and the onus a lot will be on the offender to clear that up. Not only that, once a person's
like a tax assessment. Yes.
I'd like some comment on that before I ask the second question, Chairman.
Chairman, that's precisely what we were proposing. We had outlined a procedure where the points would be assigned, and at the time that the person goes to court, when a warrant is issued or when they choose to turn up in court.
If he pled not guilty.
So if the court finds that there was no issue, the points are immediately reversed and no harm. That is what we proposed. But we were told by the constitutional experts that that is not possible, sir.
Well, you see, in this case, it's not really, I mean, it's putative points, so that would have to now be defined by law in order for something like that to be enacted. But I'm not a lawyer.
Member Dunn, the second question has to do with points, or is another? Because I know, who is in charge of points within this thing? So when you issue all these tickets, where do these points go?
In the new dispensing.
No, I want to know now.
Currently, it is the court. It is the court that.
No, because let me ask something. A person gets points, and then maybe you get. If I end up like the gentleman, have 500 tickets, where are his points? Is there some repository of the record of points somewhere?
Yes, Chairman. Yes, the record is there. His record shows as to the number of points that the individual has accumulated. So the whole aspect of the suspension of license now comes to the fore where the individual is taken to court.
So
and this is where the judge
suspends his license?
The court. So it is the
you're
court
saying
now
the onus is on the court. They know all the points.
No. I'm saying once an individual gets a ticket, there are certain tickets that carries points.
Yes.
Like disobeying the traffic light or for example. But if the individual amasses a certain number of tickets, the person is then taken to court. The judge now has a duty as it relates to whether or not they will decide to suspend the license or the person pay a certain amount of penalty.
Palmer, have you taken away anybody's license?
Chairman, if the majority of tickets are paid in the revenue service, the court would not have had an opportunity to assign any points. So it is
so
only,
the points don't reach you.
It is only when the matter would have been brought, as SSP is now saying, for a consideration of suspension. That is when the role of the court arises, or if the person challenged the ticket. So let us not just be flippant about saying it is the court that assigns points. It is not so. If the matter is not adjudicated in the court is not assigning any points.
Absolutely. So the point is, to get back at it, if the large majority of persons who get a ticket pay the ticket, so it doesn't come to you at all, what happens to the points? In other words, it seems to me like there's no record of points anywhere.
I can't answer that, sir. I can only speak to the role of the
Mr.
court.
Gordon, you're in charge of tickets, eh?
So somebody else has to
Who is in
speak to
charge
that
of
point.
tickets? Well, but Mr. Anderson, I thought you were on my side.
May I comment, sir? The system of points, my understanding of points is that they were designed as a basis for an administrative adjudication. It was not really intended for courts to get involved, except as part of the administrative adjudication by the licensing authority. So in fact, the new Road Traffic Act now makes it clear. That was a problem before. It wasn't clear that it was the ITA that was responsible for managing and maintaining points. The Island Traffic Authority is who is responsible for the points.
So hold on.
So the traffic ticketing system accumulates those demerit points.
Who does that?
The Island Traffic Authority is the agency, is the entity that is responsible. And those points...
No, because you're speaking to the new act, are you not? Or you're speaking about the situation as it exists under both?
I am speaking about the new act in which it is now made clear. That is how it was intended to work under the old act as well.
So
but there was a deficiency.
Want us to be clear on something though. We just need to, if we're going to go forward, because I'm saying the difficulty we face is not with making new laws and law after law after law. It is enforcing the laws that are in place. Now, if the law indicates that for certain offenses points on your ticket, points are put on your license, I just asked a simple question. Over the last decade, where are those points?
Those points are accumulated in the traffic ticketing system, and it is under the management of the Island Traffic Authority. The problem was that the old act did not make it clear. There was a deficiency in the act. So the Island Traffic Authority could not take action. As a matter of fact, when the new traffic ticketing system was put in 2010, the ITA started to suspend licenses once again. But when it was pointed out that the act had not been corrected, the deficiency had not been corrected, they had to back off once again. So now that problem is fixed, and from here onwards, the Island Traffic Authority will, when points are accumulated, they will issue the suspension notices.
Yeah, but
in cases, and that will take account of both offenses that have gone to court, as well as...
Yeah, but with due respect, I'm saying all of that is great theoretically, but the information, here the court said I'm not getting, they don't know if points are given and where they are. So I'm simply asking a question. When you get that ticket and the points are assigned, today you're saying that no, those points, that the Island Traffic Authority has a connection, they know all points that are issued?
The answer is yes, sir. As soon as the ticket is paid, for those tickets that the person opts to pay through
an Island Traffic Authority
at the
here,
collectorate, right? As soon as the ticket is paid, it's recorded in the system that those points are assigned to the person's driver's license.
All right, well, an Island Traffic Authority is here. Or they're not here either. Yes. Yes. So you wanted to say something, yes, identify yourself.
Dr. Dawkins, Chief Technical Director in the Ministry of Transport and Mining.
So Island Authority would fall under you?
Island Traffic Authority falls within the Ministry of Transport. So it's a department of the ministry. Under the new act, the ITA will be established as a standalone entity. But for the time being, they fall under the ministry and under my purview. I just want, Mr. Anderson explained the issue that currently exists, why no suspensions are being done, and that had to do because of the gap in the law that caused there to be a challenge when the ITA attempted to suspend licenses. The points do accumulate, and the fact is that there will be drivers out there who have complied, they have paid, they would be eligible for suspension because the points that they may have accumulated would exceed the suspension limits, but because of the inability to administratively effect those suspensions, no suspensions are taking place. This is one of the reasons that we have been pushing for the new act so that we can actually get that aspect in place, because it's not a failure in the assignment of points, it is because of that gap, and that's one of the things we are eager to get in train so that the suspension from the administrative perspective can take place. I hear the points being raised, and maybe one of the things we could have done is, because the ITA does have the record and would know when those thresholds are reached, the ITA could advise the court that persons A, B, and C...
Could or should, or would? Under the new act now?
No, under the new act, they will be able to suspend.
Okay.
They will be able to do issue the suspension notices. What I'm simply saying is that what could have been being done in the interim, but it would put more burden on the courts, would be for the ITA to then send those cases to the court to say that this license should be suspended and have the court take action. But with the existing backlog in the court, that would only have been adding to their burden. And what we have been trying to do is to get the legislation dealt with so that the administrative process can take place. I want to add also that if you look at the new act, it makes a provision for a late payment fee to be added. So as it is now, if the 21 days passes and the payment hasn't been made, the motorist cannot go into the tax office and make that payment. They are automatically kicked into the court system. The new arrangement basically keeps the motorist out of the court, and if they go in 4 months later to make that payment, they will be able to pay and pay the penalty
and not have to go to court. So there is no automatic issuing of warrants. The provisions in the bill that prevent the renewal of the driver's license or the motor vehicle transactions or the other transactions from taking place mean that at that point, the system will flag that this person has these unpaid tickets, and they will not be able to carry out their transactions until they clear those tickets. The offender would still have the option then to say that they wish to contest it in court, they disagree, but they could then pay right there and clear it to move forward. So given that motor vehicle license is a one-year process, the intention is that within any one-year period, we would catch any outstanding tickets.
All right, Dr. Dunn, you were going to finish.
I'd like to ask, in the new dispensation that is being proposed for the ITA, will the license be barcoded or Q-coded to at least allow for the persons at the point of entry of taking the ticket, like the police in the new electronic system, the data that is input at that stage would be correct and eliminate the deficiencies that an individual might have in writing wrong letters or numbers. So that's for ITA.
Well, there are discussions underway in terms of the new systems that we want to put in place. This is in conjunction with tax admin. So we do require new systems to upgrade our the issuing of driver's licenses and managing the motor vehicle databases. So in the different options that have been put forward, it includes the possibility of barcoding, that you can scan the license. We are not yet at the point of deciding exactly what that new license will look like with the changes.
Just, sorry, Chairman. You said that one of the problem which Member Phillips had earlier, which is the same problem I'm having, is that we're looking to enact these new laws that will require far greater ticketing. Yet still we don't have that collaboration across the various ministries that have an input in this, and therefore we're doing something that will just fail.
Mr. Allen, you
Right, sir, not responding to that last point,
Yes.
but to a point before. Naturally, though, I am definitely for a system that is fully modernized. In fact, if we move to that sort of a system, what will happen automatically, that the very motorist that you are citing for a violation would not be held up at that length of time on the road whilst you have that sort of a system. So within no time you would be able to swipe that driver's license, information pops up on the thing, and you will just need to input what offense was committed, the day, date and time, and within no time that motorists can be on their way. So I am definitely for moving towards that platform. But I just want to add, Mr. Chairman, that in terms of suspension of license, that speaks to that is as it relates to the ITA, but I am aware that the court currently suspends license. Because up to last week, an offender in the traffic court license was suspended for 30 months for breaches. So I just want to make that clear.
All right.
I wanted to, I hear the members talking about getting ready for the new Road Traffic Act and the operationalizing of it. Just to say that we have spent the last year with the transformation group, as you will note, in cleaning up the data is what we're doing, cleaning up the data, so that we even presenting today all that the data information is as a result of the effort to interrogate the system and putting in more resources and to analyze the data so that we could, because with data you can make decisions. And I wanted to also support the court statistician's comment that we have been collaborating and working together and putting in these extra data entry points, training people, but of course it requires a lot more. But I'm just reiterating that it has started And one thing I can say I would do is to expand the transformation team, where the focus has been only within the ministry, and we've been doing collaboration and going out. What we can do is actually pull the team, a team right across, so that it's real time. So every time we meet, everybody is there sitting, and the work has begun. That's what I wanted to emphasize.
But Ms. McIntosh, I just say that, having said that, there's still, your base figure was 600,000. The Ministry of Justice's base figure is closer to $1 million. There's a lot of reconciling. So when you break down your figures, he's double what you have. So somewhere in there, there's a real problem. That's what is concerning us. Mr. Paul, I just wanted to make a point.
Yes, just to make a point, Ainsley Powell, Commissioner General Tax Admin, if it is okay, we could just outline where we are, at least concept-wise now, in terms of our project, going forward to look at what we have now to improve the system to manage and the issuing of licenses, endorsement of licenses within the context of the new Road Traffic Act. And I could ask Mr. Wright just to give, a quick overview of where we are and what we are contemplating.
Yeah, it would have been good, we should have had it earlier, but concise.
Yeah, okay.
We would get it concise because members do have some burning issues.
George Wright, I'm George Wright from Tax Administration. I'm been tasked to sort of pull together an approach to the implementation of the new.
Speaking to the right, so that they can hear. Yeah, turn on both. Turn on both of them.
Yeah.
No, turn both. Yeah. Is it working? Yeah.
Yeah. I was tasked to pull together.
Yeah, briefly, please.
The concept to deal with the new RTA Act rather, and we have been meeting for a couple of months, and we brought together teams from all agencies, and we put forward a proposal on the table, and then just to briefly tell you what the terms of our engagement was. It's really to initiate a stakeholder consultation and to develop and implement a comprehensive communication and change management plan around the new provisions of the RA Act. We also want to define a collaborative way for us to work together with the stakeholders and to facilitate this new transaction, this new act, and to determine an implementation schedule of the amended provisions of the RA Act. Because under the new act, there's the minister is allowed to say what aspect of the new act that they would implement at a particular point. The minister can determine what provisions that he wishes to implement once the act is in force. And therefore, we're trying to discuss with stakeholders, because TAJ, as the point of contact for most of the taxpayers, we have to manage that process, because when the changes occur, we have to deal with the public.
But sir, I think we all agree with the road traffic and all. Our problem is administrative.
No, but
our problem is the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
Right, and so when we look at there are about 5 systems out there that is managing this whole traffic ticket management system. 5 systems. We have the driver's license system. We have the motor vehicle system. We have the traffic ticket management system. We have ITA has a system that issues fitness, and all those systems need to talk to each other. Some of those systems, for instance, the driver's license is the CTD, Dawkins just mentioned the fact that the driver's license is at end of life. It needs to be changed. There are new changes coming in the Road Traffic Act to deal with that. The driver's license system is unable to deal with because of the age of the system and the ability to make changes to that system. So we are proposing going forward that we look at the existing system and see how best we can integrate that system to deliver on some of the provision, maybe not all, and to better coordinate, as it was indicated earlier, with the stakeholders, to better coordinate so that we have a more efficient system going forward. But also, we are seeing, going forward, we need an end-to-end system, a modern system where we can have online payment, online transaction, and take the people out of the offices and give them the ability to do a lot of the services online. And to that end, we have been looking at systems that provide that, those facilities, right? And we have a group working to do just that.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little disturbed. Let me preface whatever I'm going to say. The proposed system would require that all the different systems that they are able to speak to each other.
Integrated, yes.
Right. And we propose to have this piece of legislation in place for March of 2019.
This year?
Yes.
2 months.
So, is it possible to have that system in place?
No.
By the end of February 2019?
No, no, sir. No,
right. So, this is an exercise in futility?
No. No, it is not.
Well, but let me ask, who is in charge, managing the project to have these systems speak to each other to meet the requirements of the new act?
If I may, Minister Williams and the Ministry of Finance had asked TJ to coordinate the process. What we are looking at is a phasing in. So the first phase that we'll be able to make amendments to the existing system to deal with the new fines, etc. And the second phase that we'll be looking now at how do we issue driver's license. As Mr. Wright mentioned, we want an end-to-end solution. So we have been looking at existing systems that have been implemented elsewhere that integrates very well with trafficking system. It's a question now of us getting our requirements together, now that we know exactly what the provisions are. Remember, we had a lot of changes to the Act, so it will be difficult for us to have determined exactly what the requirements for a new system. And so we are now in a much better position to make that decision. What we are doing is that we're looking at a system basically that will allow us, for instance, that you could have an automated testing system for issuing of a driver's license. Because we're thinking of that, we need that database to be as secure as possible for the police to use to issue the tickets and to pursue whatever else is necessary. We are looking also at how do we issue now the driver's license, because the new act requires that we have to change from that what we issue a provisional license or learner's license now. The next,
with all respect, what you're speaking to, the adjectival part of what?
Pardon me?
The adjectival part, the procedure was to arrive at all of these things. I'm not really interested in that, because that's for the technical people and all those people involved. We knew that we were going to pass this piece of legislation, and we knew.
Yeah, but we did not know what would have been the final product. So let me give you an example.
You did not know
in the first draft of the bill, we had 3 types of licenses. So we could not have, if we had gone out and developed a system, we would have now ended up with a system that is not in keeping with the Act. And those were some of the challenges that we had. Now that we know where the final situation is, and as we pointed out, we were always behind the 8 ball in terms of the age of the system that we had. So were we going to make amendments to the existing?
I thank you for all of that. But what I'm concerned about, we are supposed to be making this administration so efficient, right? We save money and time. And what I want to find out now is where are we in terms of our meeting, anticipating and meeting those expectations, those outcomes which should follow from the introduction of the Act, the new provisions?
Okay, all right. There are some things that will be out of THA's hands, but we are working with the stakeholders on that. The regulations are going to be key, because that is where you'll get a lot of the details as to how we actually will operate. We are looking at making amendments to deal with the things that can be dealt with now. So for instance, you were talking about issuing the driver's license. How much can we do now to amend to issue a proper provisional? We are looking at how do we deal with the rate, how do we record the information to do the endorsements. And what we are saying is that within a particular time frame, by doing it step by step or in phases, we should be able to get it in within what are we saying, 18, 20 months. I think that's where we're looking at, yeah. To get everything in place, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Of 20 months. How do we capture all the information and have it in a place such that when you finally arrive at your beautiful system, which you say you should have in place in 20 months, what is there to assure us that all will be well because your history doesn't suggest that you have a system which has been robust and able to store and capture all this information?
We'd have to look at issues, I think, in two subsets. One, what we have up to this point in time, and we have looked at some of the issues we have in terms of the accuracy of the data. Two, once the Act is in place, we have any issuing of new tickets, etc., how we will handle those. That is where they are looking at the ticketing system, because that will be the heart of where it will start. And then once you have new systems in place, then we're talking about conversion and conversion rules. I can't really say to you here now that we could guarantee you that we'll be able to convert everything, but we think we should be able to do or come up with an ideal conversion approach that would be able to get the things going forward. I don't know the legality of it and the Act, but I mean, I have to be subject to legal advisement that can you issue or endorse a ticket in the new, under the new Act based on tickets issued under the old. I'm not sure about that, but
which is exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that can be done.
I'll take you.
But we'd have to look at those legalities.
For that matter, we have this dissonance. We have a number where it is showing as between the Ministry of National Security and the Ministry, somewhere 600,000.
Yeah, I have to rely on them for that figure.
You see, where I was before,
yeah,
is that difficulty for me. You know, and so because members of the public have come to understand that this is woefully inefficient, and when based on what SSP Allen has told us, it's really not so. Based on what he's saying, it's really a minuscule number of delinquents that we have. Because we have been told, we were frightened. And what Senior Superintendent Allen has told us this morning is really contrary to that. But I'm not sure as to whether or not I can accept Superintendent Allen's figure, or whether or not I should go elsewhere. Dr. Dennis has really painted a dim picture of what there is. And so I'd like some assurance as to what I should rely on, what the members of the public can accept as to the true position, so that we can make the recommendation to the Parliament as to what approach should be taken. I'd want some assurance as to what I can rely on. We're all policy makers, right?
No, nobody wants to take that one. All right. Well, all right. I think.
Chairman, just before, but it's something for us to ponder. I'd just like to, where we had a number here of 600 and.
The what? The number of tickets outstanding?
Yes.
The one was 600 and the other one was close to 1 million. Justice.
Yes. I'd just like to. Given that we have all these the variances, and that 664,000 tickets you say which are outstanding?
309,000.
But of
the 309, 66,000.
Oh, you had a 242, which you say you have a
242,000 failed payments.
Yes. So what you really have are 60 odd thousand which remain. And have you done any disaggregation? Do you know what categories of persons fall within that 66,000?
In fact, what we have done in taking steps to treat with this is that we have already, through our system at headquarters, disseminated information right across the island to the respective police divisions or parishes as to the persons who have outstanding tickets. So I know as we speak, my colleague officers is interacting with the rural courts in order to have warrants to go and to apprehend these offenders.
Well, let me ask you, have you determined how many of those tickets can still be pursued in the court?
But that is what we're about, to take these persons to answer as to their non-payment.
Does the law in its present form allow you to pursue those tickets up to what time?
Absolutely.
For how long? For how long?
No. As long as you remain outstanding, unless things are otherwise dictated through policy. But as long as you remain outstanding, you will have to account.
Let's take one category. Careless and dangerous driving. How many of those would you say you have within that 66?
I don't have that information with me.
Because you know that category requires that a notice be served on within a specified time, and we must do it in order to present a true picture of what is outstanding. Because if you hadn't done it within the statutory period, they're dead. So it's something that you perhaps need to look at, because we don't want to have these figures inflated and giving a bad impression.
Yes, sir. What's Chairman.
All right. Before we go on, members, I'm going to have PS wants to make an intervention, but the team from the Ministry of Transport have indicated that because they're not directly involved yet, although the Island Transport Authority seems to be implicated, but not involved directly, they're asking if they can be excused. No, well, no, I don't want to jump in. If there are questions, then the answer is no. All right.
Sorry.
Can you hold a second? No.
Transport Authority, not the ministry persons. We are
Oh,
asking
sorry, the Transport
Authority.
Authority. Oh, absolutely. All right, so members, can we allow the Transport Authority? Yes. Thank you for coming. Yes.
Chairman and member, may I please remind you that careless and dangerous driving are not ticketable offenses. I don't know about the statutory limitation on those matters, but there was a court ruling some time ago to remove those offenses from tickets, so those do not fall within the realm of tickets.
Okay. Mr. Who do we, Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. SSP Allen, going back to your opening statement, my understanding is that non-appearances in court would lead to issuance of warrant or warrants. How do you explain where one traffic offender is allowed to rack up over 600 tickets without being detected? Were these offenses committed in one area or are spread across the country? And over what period of time was this done?
Mr. Chair, in relation to that point, I just want to make the point again that when an offender gets a ticket, if it is that the ticket is paid, they are not required to attend court. The points are accumulated, and the explanation proffered earlier in respect to the ITA's role or lack thereof currently would account for the person not being disqualified. If it is that the ticket remain outstanding, however, it is at that point that they would be required to attend court. So once the offender complies after receiving a ticket, then there would be no need for them to attend court, and there would be no need for a warrant to be issued for them to be brought before the court. So that would allow multiple tickets to be received, to be paid, and to be accumulated by the offender.
That's it, Mr. Arnold? Yeah. Okay, Mr. Jackson.
Very briefly, Chairman, thank you. Much of what I wanted to say I've been in part referred to, but I really want to stand in full support of the comments made by my colleague Campbell in respect of the preparedness of the for us to deal with the new legislation and the provisions and more so the penalties that are in it. I fully support the position of the judges as was conveyed by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice. The last thing we want is to cause any innocent person or someone who has paid what they are supposed to pay to suffer the inconvenience and the indignity that will come from a presumption that they are guilty of something. So I have full support for that. Mr. Chairman, I'm a little bit distraught, disappointed in where we are with the whole, managing the whole thing. So many arms of the government seeking not to be speaking to each other. We have enunciated the principle of join up government for the longest of time. When I hear what Dr. Dennis mentioned as against the presentation I was hearing from Mr. Grant, it caused me to be distressed. It's a serious indictment on us as government. Serious. And so all I want to say, two things in that regard. Let us get our act together. because they are failing all around. All of us have to work together to get this thing right to serve the public. Much of the discussion have been around the number of tickets issued, number of unpaid tickets, amount of monies uncollected, etc. But Mr. Chairman, there's a bigger issue, a much larger issue. What happens on the roads in this country have all to do with public order. It's the breakdown of public order that leads to the breakdown in public safety. And the breakdown in public safety is what contributes largely to our crime problem in this country. Because what it conveys is the incapacity of the country to enforce laws, to apprehend and penalize those who are guilty of even minor or smaller, relatively minor or smaller offense like traffic violation compared to other violent criminal acts. Because what we do and convey by this failure is to say we don't have the capacity as a state to deal with persons who you can identify. If you can't apprehend persons and carry them through the process that you can see and issue a ticket, how the hell people will have confidence that you can apprehend a murderer or somebody who's shooting? That is the fail. That is the depth of the failure. And I don't believe we are treating it with the level of seriousness. We talk about crime reduction. It's not just the reduction in murder, no, but the sustainability of the reduction. And that sustainability, among other things, will depend on our capacity to deal with enforcement of this nature. So I'm saying all of this to say to national security, to say to justice, to everybody, the demand on you is way beyond reducing those numbers of unpaid tickets. The impact of it is way beyond that, and I don't think we have a grasp of that. So I'm making a plea. Last, I just want to ask a couple questions. Yeah, 2, 3. SSP Allen. Right now, if my colleague, Member Clark, is stopped by the police and they ask him for his license, and he says, yes, I have a license, and he gives the license, have his number, which is now the TRA number for all of us, can the police independently verify from that information, his license, that yes, Eroy Clark was issued a driver's license and have any information on it? Can they, on the spot, make that determination?
Yes, they can, sir. And it is one phone call to our police information, well, formerly control, or police information communications arm, and the information as to the entire status of that motorist is provided to include outstanding ticket, or to include the status of his driver's license, his vehicle, if it is properly registered and is current, certificate of fitness. Those information can be readily be provided.
So you can, but for him and his driver's license, because the vehicle is a separate thing.
Yes.
So outstanding ticket.
The same vehicle is assigned to me. They do that the other way.
Okay. Okay, you're a regular.
I travel from
yes, offender. Okay, I asked that question, Chairman, because I just wanted to know if there was any central database for which that information can be obtained in real time, so that the other things, which so I'm very encouraged by that. So let us close by saying, Mr. Chairman, much of the issues which have been discussed and the failures, in fact, we need to declare a state of emergency with this matter. This is where we need a SOE to deal with it as a matter of urgency and emergency. So Those are my comments, Chair.
Member Dalrymple.
Chairman, I have been listening, and it's not very often that this committee speaks with one voice. And I think it is loud and clear that this system is not ready. We're not talking to each other, and I know Mr. Grant says he could give me the names of the persons in the Trelawney court, but giving me the names of the persons doesn't help the system at all. What it brings to my mind, where it is that we are spending the funds. Are we spending the funds in a way that is not making us able to move any further or to take the system or make it any more ready? Because let me tell you something, it is, as all of us have said, very, very frightening. And the permanent secretary from the Ministry of Justice, those of us who work in the court, said it very, very clearly. So it means, therefore, we are not ready for this. And when I also hear from someone that it's the Island Traffic Authority, they are going to be the people, those are the people that I pass on the road, those people dressed in their gray uniforms that are going to be in charge of. No? Oh, because that frightens me even more. So I am saying to you, and I think it is clear, this committee sits here to look at how we use resources and how efficiently they are being done. And it is clear that with all the transformation units and all that we are employing, we have not even scratched the surface, and we are not ready to implement this system.
All right. Member.
Most importantly, my colleague, Mr. Jackson, said a lot, and I agree with him, and I want to commend to him. He said something that's very important. I wrote it down. Identity of persons. Probably I should commend the whole NIDS process, because that would certainly assist us with identification of persons. And I am serious, because he said it. We need to identify. So therefore, we do need a national system to assist us. I'm commending NIDS.
As a paid advertisement, we will send you the bill for the paid advertisement as we go on. Remember, Daly?
Member Jackson has made mention of some of the concerns that I have in regards to not just revenue, but how we have law and order in this country to prevent so much traffic tickets. But I remember being on that committee to deal with the upgrading of the Act. And I'm very surprised to know that we were not, I thought we were all working together, because I was told and I saw a number of different agencies inside here making recommendations. And to hear now that we are really not a joint up, but we were working separately, is really now a big concern to me in regards to implementing and the rollout for March. However, I'm wondering though, do we have the staff to carry out this kind of emergency? One. And two, is it going to be a one-stop shop where you can get all the information at once to be able to pay off these tickets? And I'm wondering what kind of machines, what kind of mechanism is used in the tax office that cannot be set up somewhere else to be able to collect the tickets instead of going into a place that is already overcrowded and persons feeling that they are going to be wasting their time and don't show up. Because it is clear that apart from everything else, the revenue will need to be collected.
All right. I don't know, I think it was general, your part about having the appropriate staff, I think just a general concern with all the others that when this new system comes on board. All right. Member Clark, you said you had, oh, you're not. Yeah, but one, yes, because I want to.
I don't know at whose feet this will fall, but can you say whether or not that you'd make a recommendation that all of these things be handled by, say, a single entity, and say whatever name you want to put it, the Land Transport Authority, so that everything, all the collection of the assignment of points and ticketing and all of this will come under one authority? Would you make that recommendation?
Well, I think that is more of a policy. All right, members, let me. I've listened carefully, and I think, as Member Dalrymple said, I want to sort of state, I think, maybe with some suggestions for recommendations moving forward. Oh, sorry, Dr. Hill, yes.
Yeah, just one quick point, Mr. Chairman. The new Road Traffic Act was passed when the 2019-20 budgeting process was already well underway. So there is, although we'll be required to implement the new Island Traffic Authority, which is a precursor to the Land Transport Authority, as was mentioned. There isn't anything in the budget yet.
No funds to do it.
We're meeting with Ministry of Finance on Friday, and we'll be making some representation. We have had our ceilings, and we know it's going to be a tough fight to get some funds in the budget so we can start the implementation of the new Island Traffic Authority, which will be a statutory body, and some tremendous responsibility is going to fall to that authority under the new act, including some of what we have been discussing this morning. So I am just hoping, Mr. Chairman, that members will support when the budget comes up for debate, to ensure that there is something in there for the implementation of the new Island Traffic Authority. But I'm sure it might not come to that, because the Financial Secretary will respond to our request when we meet on Friday.
All right, members, just to recap some of the points. Members, from my perspective, and I don't know if I reflect the committee, but I have not found a lot to give me cause for optimism out of what I've heard today. I still believe we have some real problems. The first thing is that there's obviously still a lack of coordination between different branches of government, and this problem is not going to be resolved just by putting in a new Road Traffic Act. If you do not get this coordination problem solved, the problem will continue after. I think the epitome of it, and Member Campbell, you made the point, and I went back and looked at the figure. Just as a matter of, I go back to where I started, just as a matter of fact, what we were told at the start when we sent out for information, the Ministry of National Security has indicated that there are 296,949 outstanding tickets, which they have broken down in its entirety. But the Ministry of Justice, which have come with statistics which they say have been verified and double-checked, have 990,000. Which is 3 times what the Ministry of National Security have. And somewhere in there's a real problem. So I think our committee is really concerned about it. Now, the reason I'm not feeling good about it is that the only way that you're really going to get this resolved is if the technology that interfaces these departments together is put in place. And yet the discussions we have had, I do not feel that that has been, it may be that there's a discussion exploring it, but we have not gone down that line in the way we should. And the problem I have is that money cannot be the problem, because members, I've looked up the budget. The revenue from these tax tickets for this financial year, Ms. Morrison, is estimated to be $606 million. So it's not that you can't take a portion of it just to set up the system and get it right. So we're concerned about that, and I'm also concerned that we are now facing a deadline, as Member Phillips and Member Campbell both pointed out, and Member Jackson. The Road Traffic Act comes into play, supposed to, in March of this year. I believe members at the committee does not feel that we are ready. We're not prepared. We have heard that the Island Transport Authority doesn't have the funding to plan for, to even put the department, and they are going to be the critical ones at the center of collating the points and doing the different things. So, members, I think that we are going to have to, in our report, indicate to the Parliament that we have grave concerns about the state of readiness to take on the Act, and that we hear that there is a committee in place. At the start, we were told, Ministry of Justice, I think you need to play an even closer role. You had pointed out you're not, you meet with the committee, but you're not part of the committee. I think it was a distinction you made. I may be wrong, but that cannot be. And I think that our report is just going to indicate that we're urging that this be dealt with as a matter of priority. And what I'd like to suggest is that, members, that we make those recommendations, we indicate to the Ministry of National Security that has a transformation committee that they not only include the other critical persons who may not be on it, but that we would like a report in 1 month back to our committee, in 1 month, indicating not just what is being done, but specifically to deal with issues such as what technology is going to be used to do the interface and these different things. And I think that having sent that report when it's going out, we'd like the report circulated to all the participants, and eGov is going to have to be a part of that as well. And the next time, if we do ask them to come, they would have to come as well. But that we get the comments from all the various participants to ensure that we are on the right track. Those would be my recommendations, members. I don't know if there are any others that you figure. Members, there are just two issues I had not really participated directly, but there's something that I would like to just as a sort of an idiosyncrasy, because it goes to this ticket. Mr. Allen, I'm not certain, but I was driving on the North-South Highway over the weekend, and it occurred to me as we were driving, the speed limit on the North-South Highway is what?
The speed limit varies, yes, on the North-South Highway, and for the most part, I think it's 70. But it varies on the area, and it comes back to 70 kilometers. So, but no, the signs are there. No, the signs are at the various areas. However, when we...
Please, let me just go on. 70, yes.
70 in some instances is 50, but it varies, and it all has to do with the design of the road. So unlike the east-west or the PJ Patterson, where the surface is far different and flatter, where it can go up to 110, it is far different on the north-south because of the contours of the...
But Mr. Yeah. Fine. Well, fine. And so the signs have to go, but I want to carry this to another level. Well, I see you jumping in early. I anticipate the question, but go ahead. Let me, Dr. Dawes.
Okay. The north-south highway, meaning the toll road?
Yes, the toll road.
Okay. The speed limit, it is posted.
North-south.
The toll road from Caymanas?
No, that's what the Edward Siaga Highway, as against the PJ Practitioner Highway. Yes.
Yeah. So
go
the
ahead.
north-south, it is posted as 80 kilometers per hour.
That's what, 50 miles an hour? 55?
50 miles an hour. There are sections that have warning advisory speed for 60 kilometers per hour.
That's
Those
30.
are the sections that have a lower design speed because of the terrain. We have recently done the gazette to bring that section of highway in line with the toll road speed limit areas, and so the maximum on the north-south highway that will be permitted is 100, but the operators are the ones who will need to now go out and make whatever adjustments.
Yeah, because let me just say, Dr. Doss, you know, one of the things, you must have laws and we're willing to do all the parameters, but there's a level of sort of common sense that governs some of these things. I mean, if you're driving on that highway at 30 miles and 50 miles an hour, it's crazy. And I think most well-thinking people, and they're not trying to break any law or anything, but you go up and you're traveling at 50, 60. In the United States, most of those highways are 70, and I know the discussions of design and so forth, but for most part, the road is a good road. And I'm just saying that, obviously, and then what happens now to many people is you just every day put your speed trap, and, you know, with due respect, I was driving past, as I said, and somebody said to me, you know, maybe under the new Traffic Act, the police should just sit there with a credit card machine. You'd just get rid of all the problems of payment and so forth, because it's felt in that light. The truth of the matter is that some of these roads, you have this highway, which in many cases has a speed limit that is less than it is on roads in other parts of the rural community where you don't have that. And I'm very happy if you say that you're dealing with it. I'm just a little unhappy I never went to the 110 in some areas, which would be 70, 75 miles an hour. All right, I think there's a lot of, you wanted to say something?
Well, Chairman, whilst I'll agree with you, no. Whilst I will agree with you, Chairman, with regards to the whole aspect of any adjustment, but we just want to bear in mind speeding and the fact as to the evidence that we have as to what excessive speeding has done. And we have to also bear in mind the terrain and why the speed limit is different at different areas of that particular, the steepness of the area. In fact, a motorist confessed to me recently that it is only when the police when he turned the corner, he saw the police, and he looked back at his dashboard, he realized the speed at which they were going. So we have to bear in mind speed, and the greater your speed is the far more dangerous in terms of impact. But I agree with you in terms of some amount of tweaking.
And quite frankly, if we are able, so when do you hope, Dr. Dawes, that this will become, that these increases?
Okay, so the gazette has been published, and between the toll authority and the operator, they will need to be looking at the areas that the speed limit will be adjusted. I don't have a timeline. Who makes these
decisions? Your department?
Ultimately, it's within the ministry.
You know, no one takes a lot of responsibility on the advice of.
In consultation with stakeholders, which includes, and it includes the police, the operators, the authorities.
All right, but good. Member Dunn.
Yeah, Chairman, may I suggest too, sir, in line with the recommendation from Member Jackson, that in tandem with the implementation of the new Road Traffic Act, we need to have at that time the adjustment in some of these areas. Some persons call it tweaking, but we need to have adjustment in some of these areas because people have the view there's anecdotal evidence that the police are just there to collect money rather than save lives.
And I'm just saying, some of that may be a perception, but it's a perception because of how it is done. And it may be unfair, but I think if we can recommend some of these changes, it might change that perception. The last point I wanted to make.
It takes too long to make some of these adjustments. Talk about it in 2-3 years.
By the way, so you're saying it's gazetted so we can expect it within a month?
It may be a little longer than a month. I don't want to commit the technical people
But before the financial year is out, we should see the
so.
adjustments.
Yes.
And it's a significant, it's moving, you're saying, from 70 to 100?
80.
80 to 100.
80 to 100 in the sections that 100 is a reasonable and safe speed.
Yeah.
Yes.
The last point I want to make is this. Within the context, Mr. Commissioner Allen, certainly once this issue with points and the tickets, especially unpaid tickets and numbers of tickets, if you get the right system in place, it is quite simple for that to just create an app. Almost every single policeman out there has a smartphone, and most of them, you can just get an app. They will just type in the name of the person, and they can get an indicative of whether these persons, what their status is, if the technology is right. And I think that's why it's so important for the system to be a correct system, because if the system is correct, it will make everything a lot easier. So I just say, Member Phillips had wanted one last point before we close.
I just wanted to ask the Minister of Transport, seeing that the new act itself in Schedule 8 give the responsibility of the driver's license offense registry, a couple of the registries, to the Island Traffic Authority. Where are we with that in preparation for the act coming into being? And secondly, when can we expect the regulations to come to the House?
Ms. Winter, could you give the answer to that question?
Ms. Joan Winter will just ask her to respond.
Good afternoon. With respect to the regulations, we are maybe about 85% complete. We are now doing reconnaissance with respect to the last instruction to the CPC and the draft that we have received. And we are hoping that maybe by the end of February, we can have an amended version at which we will retreat to read for the correctness of the information. With respect to the Island Traffic Authority being able to keep these registers, they have to work closely with the TAJ, and based on the presentation to the TAJ with respect to the new driver license system, it will have the capability of generating these registers. But we still have to wait for that 20 months that the Commissioner just told us about. We are hoping, though, that the new IT coming on will be able to maybe physically or on their system generate these registers.
There will be before the new system
should be able to generate these registers.
And PS, the transport, was it the consideration of this act itself? When we considered it coming into law, did we consider all the different aspects being at least either completed or near completion before, or is it that we had planned to enact it, then hoping that things fall into place? Because where we are now, it doesn't seem as if we are anywhere near all things or most things falling into place.
What we have done at the ministry, we are in the process of establishing an implementation team, and the minister actually started the process by engaging all stakeholders. The certain parts of the act will be brought into operation once the administrative arrangements and the regulations are ready. But we want to move with alacrity as far as the implementation of the new Island Traffic Authority and to put them in a position to carry out their responsibility under the Act. It will mean, of course, the organizational structure being developed. The studies were done already. We have recommendations which we are going to be reviewing and finalizing, and also the necessary information technology systems that will be required to ensure that whatever database they are required to keep, that they are in a position so to do. And as was pointed out earlier, it's a joined up approach. So of course we have to work closely with TAJ and eGov and other stakeholders to ensure that during the 2019-2020, as much as possible is implemented.
No, but it sounds like you're planning to implement piece of the act itself, and which I don't see how that is possible in doing it piece. And I was trying to figure out if I heard you say that the ministry is now the minister is trying to put together an implementation team when this itself has come to the House. I mean, this is nearly 3 years going, even though the Senate had just basically passed it. But previously, before the last election, it came to the House. It was just retabled because it fell off because of the election. And we should have at least be somewhere down the road to deal with the implementation of this. And that's why, a little bit disappointed. Because the truth be told, as I said to my colleague here earlier, is that the Ministry of Transport have to own this. And while the Ministry of Transport own it, should be the lead coordinator to ensure that everything else falls in place. And I don't have the impression that the ministry itself is leading the implementation. So the ticketing is the police deal with that. Hopefully it fall into place by time. The courts have their part, and my word to you, Chairman, is that the ministry try and take control, that everything, because otherwise it's not the police going to get blamed if the ticketing, and we have put new fines in these as a deterrent. And I would hate for us for this to become enacted. And then now, we are back at the same place where a man died with 600 tickets and him still have a driver's license. Because as a legislator, I also am a part or complicit to the inefficiencies of the government. And when I talk about government, I talk about all of us. Not government and opposition, but all of us who have participated in this.
Okay, thank you. You have a comment?
Yeah, just a comment. The points are noted, and the ministry shares your concerns. We want to see it implemented as soon as possible. At the same time, technology where we are now with technology, we are almost a slave to technology, and so some of the things that are to be implemented that we would have, without the technology, found ways to do it, we are now depending on technology to make sure they work well. And so some of those systems are the ones that may take longer, but it does not mean that we cannot still implement. We're not going to make perfect be the enemy of the good and delay things that are important because we don't have all of the technology. So that's what we need to do.
But the thing is that we have been coming years in dealing with it. But I agree.
All right.
Can I just point out though? It's not that nothing has been done. You know? There are things that we could not do until the act is passed. We couldn't engage, for instance, the corporate management division at the Ministry of Finance in terms of approving a new structure until we have the basis on which to do so. So that has been having been done, but most of the studies have been done, and we are putting together now that presentation to the Ministry of Finance, and in tandem with that, of course, the supporting budget to enhance the implementation.
Dr. Hills, just one question though. Who is the Minister of Transport now?
Minister Robert Montague.
Okay, good. Yes. All right. Yes. I'd forgotten for a second there. All right. Members, I think we've had a very informative day today. Certainly we have some recommendations to make. So I want to, on your behalf, thank the entire team that came out today. I think the information we got was very useful. Certainly we're going to make our recommendations to the Parliament. I think at the end of the day, what we really want is for the system to work. And I think everybody here wants the same. And we're going to do our part to try and facilitate the sort of bringing together integration and to put the process. So we'll work together to sort of bring it under control. Thank you for coming. You have all been very helpful for us today, and we look forward to hear from you soon. Thank you, members. Meeting is now adjourned.
The National Leadership Prayer Breakfast will be held this Thursday, January 17. The theme for this year's prayer breakfast is I Pledge. Join PBC Jamaica and top government leaders, members of the civil society and the private sector for the live broadcast of the National Leadership Prayer Breakfast at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel. Tune in at 7:30 a.m. as we pray for the nation at the National Leadership Prayer Breakfast on PBCJ, the People's Station.
I would like to see a Jamaica where persons express love and care and also concern for one another. The tendency is to believe that persons in the inner city are comfortable with the crime situation, but